You guys are so excited. I can hear it. It's awesome. As you likely know, this is our VBS closing program. I see a few treasured VBS shirts out there. Who had a good time at VBS? Anybody? Awesome. Well, you guys are in for a cute morning, and it's not just because I'm preaching, but our kids are going to be up here. They're going to share with us some of the songs and some of the Bible points that they learned throughout the week at VBS. But I wanted to just make sure you are aware. We probably don't have the capacity for too many announcements this morning, so I just have one for you, just one. And that is, today is our church picnic. And clap for the church picnic. Yeah. You may have been checking the weather, and you're like, what's going to happen? It doesn't matter what the weather does. We're going to party anyway, all right? So if the weather allows, we will be out here on the side yard, and we'll do all the fun stuff out there. If the weather does not allow, then we'll be right in here, and we'll have tons of fun in here. After this service, if you are able to help out, we would love some help with setting up or taking up the chairs, setting up tables in here after the service. That would be a big help. But either way, 5 o'clock tonight, we will be back. We'll have dinner for you, and we'll just celebrate each other, all right? So we're looking forward to that. Again, 5 o'clock, come back. We'll see you then. VBS was such an awesome week, right? And I am excited for you to be able to experience a little bit of it, and to usher that in is going to be the ringleader of the circus, Ryan Moreno.
All right, so VBS was so much fun. First thing I want to do before we do anything else is please clap for the volunteers. If you see a blue shirt, that means they helped. If you don't see a blue shirt, it doesn't mean it didn't help. Some people that helped still, they don't have the blue shirt, but hey, they'll let you know, or you'll spot them. All right, we did so much work on the decorations leading up to VBS, so much work in the classrooms, in the trenches of the VBS war, right? In the mornings with the pre-K kids, it was awesome. It's so smooth. In the elementary afternoons, again, so smooth, so awesome. Lots of energy every day, absolutely electric. Let's clap for those volunteers one more time. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciated it. I really appreciated the team really gathering around me. We have some very excited kids, as you can hear, who are ready to start doing their thing. But first, I just wanted to go, again, discovering your prices to God. Such an awesome message. Learning how valuable they are in God's eyes. Learning that they are the treasure, not gold, not rubies, not diamonds. And it was an absolute blast. Just so much fun. Can't wait to do it again next year. Can't wait to go to sleep in between this service and the church picnic. Also, I know that we mentioned asking for some help setting up tables for the church picnic, but we also will need some help taking down all these decorations in the hallway and stuff. If you can spare half an hour or so, just there's a list of things that are going to go in the trash. There's a list of things that we're going to save, and if you want to be on the trash team, it's going to be fun. Just all right, but we are going to have kids come up and do our VBS song, so you guys get a taste of the excitement that we had. So I'm going to bring the pre-K kids in. Hey, Ryan. We're going to bring the pre-K kids in here. Don't they just look great? All right, let's do this.
Priceless treasure. God knows me, God hears me, God is my comfort. I am His, and there's nothing better. Forgiven and chosen forever. I am a treasure. I am a priceless treasure. God knows me, God hears me, God is my comfort. Child of God, I know that I am loved. He hears me when I pray. He always makes a way. I am His and He is mine. I am the prize He came to find. I am a priceless treasure. God knows me, God hears me, God is my comfort. I am His and there's nothing better. Forgiven and chosen forever. I am a treasure. I am a child of God. I know that I am loved. He hears me when I pray. He always makes a way. I am His and He is mine. And I am the prize He came to find. I am a priceless treasure. God knows me, God hears me, God is my comfort. I am His and there's nothing better. Forgiven and chosen forever. I am a priceless treasure. God knows me, God hears me, God is my comfort. I am His and there's nothing better. Forgiven and chosen forever. I am a treasure. I am a treasure. I am a treasure. He knows you, He knows you, He loves you, He loves you. God is listening, listening, listening. He knows you, He knows you, He loves you, He loves you. God is listening, listening, listening. God knows every word before you even say it. He hears every prayer before you even pray. So let Him hear you now. Let Him hear you shout. He knows you, He knows you, He loves you, He loves you. God is listening, listening, listening. He knows you, He knows you, He loves you, He loves you. God is listening, listening, listening. God knows every word before you even say it. He hears every prayer before you even pray. So let Him hear you now. you. Yeah, he loves you. God is listening. God is listening. He knows you. Oh, he knows you. He loves you. Oh, he loves you. God is listening. God is listening. God is listening. God is listening.
All right, give them another round of applause. Our pre-K kids are going to dismiss. Go now. If you're on stage, if you are kindergarten, first or second grade, you can come up on the lower stage now. Please don't jump. Don't do it. You're so young.
He's wild. He's wild. God is wild about us. He's wild. He's wild. God is wild about us. It's so amazing to think about God's love. The God of creation is looking out for us. He knows us. He hears us. God is right here with us. And He's wild. He's wild. God is wild about us. He's wild. He's wild. God is wild about us. God is great. He is awesome. God is great. He is awesome. He's wild. He's wild. God is wild about us. He is great. He is awesome. He's wild. He's wild. God is wild about us. He is great. He is awesome. He's wild. He's wild.
back to your seats. Head back to your seats. Clap for them again. Go back to your seats. Awesome. All right. Wasn't that great? So, we also have lots of pictures that we could show you to show so we just showed you the songs that we were singing all week. Now you can see some of the awesome fun that they had for yourselves in this slideshow that we put together. So we obviously had an awesome week. It was so much fun. The kids had a great time, and we learned each day something different. And I'm going to bring some people up on stage. Bring your signs with you. If you have a sign, come up on stage. You're going to talk a little bit about what we learned each day. So each day had a different Bible point, and each Bible point had a different Bible buddy. And we had videos where they learned kind of like almost like a Discovery Channel type thing about the animal, but also focused on what God created for that animal and how he created them in specific ways to protect them or to give them community, the same way, and then they would learn throughout the rest of the day how that applied to God's creation of us as his priceless treasures. So it was really cool. We had a lot of fun meeting with all of our buddies. And they're going to tell you a little bit. They're just going to tell you what their names are. And when they say what's in the black, the Bible point for each day, all of the kids are supposed to shout, "You are treasured." So if I would be teaching about the Bible point and I would say, "God knows you," that would happen. And no matter where I said it in the middle of otherwise quiet lesson, or if it happened in the middle of one of the videos and they said, "Hey, God knows you," you see, so you can't escape it, and so you should join in. So on day 1, who did we meet and what did we learn?
We learned Pogo and God knows you.
And then on day 2, our friend was who?
Ruby.
And what did we learn?
God hears you.
And then on day 3,
we learned about Wilder and God comforts you.
And on day 4,
we learned about grace and God forgives you.
And our final friend was who?
Raymond, and we learned that God chooses you.
Awesome job, guys. Thank you. You can go back to your seats. As you saw on the slides, each day there was also a Bible verse, and at the end of the day, in a bag of treasures, they got little jewel-colored, like translucent, I think maybe even a little bit glow-in-the-dark figurines of each Bible buddy, and on the bottom of each Bible buddy, printed on there was the Bible verse for that day. So that was the treasures that they took home with them, which is very cool. And something else that they took home with them were these wristbands that said, "Watch for God." Does anybody have it? If you have one on, raise it up high. Not everybody brought them today. I didn't tell them to bring them today. That's my fault. But we had 3. Put them up again. Hold them up high. Friends, hold them up high if you have it. Thank you. These little red Watch for God wristbands, and they got them on the first day, and throughout the week, what they were learning to do was look for God and find God sightings, little treasures of God sightings, anytime they saw God doing anything in their life, at any point in any day. And then every day after the first day, when they got the wristbands, we would start out with their crew leaders, and they would share the things they saw God doing. And they would say amazing things like, "I saw God, I was crying yesterday, my mom comforted me, she made me feel better. That's why I saw God in my day." Or they would say something equally amazing and much more relatable, like, "My mom made a delicious dinner. I had a really good snack. I saw God in my snack." And I would say, "I see God every time I eat anything." So, but accompanied with that, if you may have noticed a difference between last Sunday when you saw this arch and today, is that after they would say their God sightings, their crew leaders would come up and put gems on our archway. Each day, a little bit more, because then the next day they would add more gems, and the next day they would add more gems, until eventually by the end of the week, all the things we saw God doing manifested themselves as these wonderful, sparkly gems shining in the spotlight on our archway. And it was such a cool thing. The kids were so excited about it. It was very cool. It was very cool having Bethany up on a chair trying to slap him on the top of the archway. It was awesome. So they learned how treasured they were, and they learned to treasure the moments that God works in their lives. And something I didn't say last service, but I remembered as I was scratching one of the 20 or so mosquito bites I got during snack time this week, was that we raised money for a mission. It was Operation Kid to Kid, and it was for mosquito nets. It was every $10 is a mosquito net that's treated with bug repellent to protect a bed that will sleep like 2 to 5 kids, or so we just went with 3. And we raised $1,150. So that comes out to almost 350 kids, maybe more depending on how many in the family they squeeze into the net. So at least 350 kids, which is amazing. And the kids were so excited about it. They were also excited because I kind of told them that I would dump slime on myself today at the church picnic. If they raised 500, at the time they had raised 100. And then the next day I got an envelope with $400 in it. And then a bunch of other money from a bunch of other people. I don't know how that's going to work if we're indoors, but we'll figure it out. We'll do it. It'll happen. Don't worry. So it was awesome. It was a great week. Thank you so much for sending your kids. If you sent your kids, thank you so much for helping. If you helped, I'm going to go to the Go Zone now with anybody who is of the correct age. If you arrived kind of a little bit late or in the middle of our songs and you didn't check in, please make sure that you check in your child before you send them to their class. All right? Dave, take it away.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be the last time we do VBS because they didn't seem like they enjoyed it at all. So, no, it was an awesome, awesome week, and I think you got a taste of it. But that energy was here Monday through Friday in the mornings, at evenings, and I think thankfully for Ryan and some of our volunteers who pulled double duty, not in the afternoons. They got a little reprieve, but then at night we would come back and that energy was full force, and it was an amazing week, and so cool to see what God has done, these truths, to watch our little ones sing about these truths, and to see those seeds are being planted and even starting to grow a little bit too, and so cool to be a part of that, and we all, like, this is our kids ministry, so we all were a part of that, whether you were able to come out or not, whether you helped set up throughout the weeks, you helped with the decorations, you were praying, you were a part of that. And so thank you to you all. I know Ryan said, he pointed out the volunteers and we clapped for them, but we should do it again because we had so many awesome volunteers. We had volunteers who were here in the morning and at night every day for the week, some who were working jobs in between and still were here. We have those who were working all day and then came at night, some who took vacation time so that they could be a part of this. And it really shows the value that we place on kids ministry. And that's not just something that we do once a year. It's not like, all right, guys, VBS is coming. We got to dial up. We got to pretend like we care about the kids for a week. We value our kids all the time. And I think VBS magnifies that in a really big way, puts a spotlight on that. You walk in and there's vines and these temple carvings in our hallway. It's like, oh, okay, we really do care about our kids' ministry. But hopefully you have felt that all year round if you've been a part of Hope for any amount of time. And if you haven't, I want you to know we value our kids' ministry all of the time, not just for VBS. And this takes many different forms. We have a Go Zone is our kids program that meets every Sunday morning, and we have volunteers that are there every week that are communicating God's love to our kids, and they're singing song, they're engaging in the Bible, they have small groups where they're discussing what they've talked about. We have our toddlers and our pre-K, there it is, in our Hope Wonder Zone, where they're being fed God's truth as well, and then our nursery, where our littlest ones are being loved on, and they're being trained in the way that they should go. And so I am so glad that we are a church that values our kids' ministry, and I pray that you have felt that and experienced that. Let's just keep clapping. We got like 30 more minutes. Let's just. No, we are so glad. And I want to just encourage parents, continue to take advantage of that because it is for our kids. It's also for you. And I can tell you as a father of 3, 2 of mine were up here today. And to see them participate the way they did is, it's like, was someone cutting onions? Because I was getting a little choked up. But some of you, and I've seen them, you have kids that when you come in, they run far, far away from you. And you're like, I haven't seen my kids at all. I don't have any of those kids. My 3 girls are all clingers. And from the time they were babies and putting them in nursery, it was painful because they would cry and scream. And many weeks, it meant we would peel our kids off of us, hand them to the nursery workers, and then Lee and I would find a corner of the church and cry because we're like, what are we doing to our kids? They hate us. And then there were weeks where they came in here with us because we couldn't bear it and we felt bad about the nursery workers. So we get it. I get it. I have gone through, we are still in some ways going through that personally. But I want to tell you that it's worth it. That those hardships, those questions of, am I doing the right thing? Does my kid hate me? They don't. I promise you. They'll forget very soon. But it is a hard step to take, and as I said, we have gone through it. I don't know that we've done it perfectly, and so there's no judgment on anyone here, but parents, start taking those steps to get your kids a part of our kids program, because I know watching my 2 clingers up here dancing around, that wouldn't have happened if we were like, okay, they don't want to go. They don't want to go. They don't want to go. Then they never would have wanted to be up here. But at some point, we had to say, this hurts me, and it hurts you, but you have to go. I believe this is the right thing. And so start that pattern. Start that pattern. And there is so much grace for you in how that looks, and maybe it's not every week. And I can tell you, I've left my kids in there when there's 3 other crying kids, and then I bring my crying kid in, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, and tiptoe out. But our workers they know, they get it. They know that this is important, that even if they spend 30 minutes or an hour with crying kids, that it's 1 hour, but it's a part of a long pattern of training our kids in the way they should go. And that starts in our nursery and goes all the way up through our elementary kids. And today we saw the fruit of that our kids are learning that they are priceless treasures. And so we are glad that we have volunteers who help us to have a kids ministry, and we're glad that we have parents who trust us enough to give us their kids for an hour a week or for a week-long VBS. But we value our kids, and this message, Treasured, Discovering Your Priceless to God, was the message that we shared with our kids this week. And when we put Bible buddies up here and we shout, you are treasured, and we know that is true, but it can start to feel like, well, that's true of our little ones, right? We want them to feel good about themselves. We want them to feel secure in who they are. And so we tell our little ones, you are a priceless treasure. But adults, you'd probably have felt like at some point you age out of being priceless. That when you lose your cuteness and you stop mispronouncing words accidentally, you're no longer priceless. Now you have to earn it, right? And so we try to justify our worth. We try to justify our value, and we have to work for it. We have to earn this pricelessness. But I'm telling you that this truth that we communicated with our kids it is true of them. It's not just true of them. It's true of you as well. That you are a priceless treasure. It's not a thing we say to kids to make them feel better. It's a thing God says to us so that we know who we are. And you are treasured. And as I was thinking about this theme, treasured, before I even knew really where the week would go with VBS, I thought about these parables that Jesus tells. They're really short. In Matthew 13. We're going to read those. Matthew 13, starting in verse 44. Jesus shares these 2 short parables. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then, in his joy, went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. When I read these parables, my brain first and initially goes to, well, these are stories about us, right? This is supposed to describe our lives, that we are supposed to be this man who goes out and search, and we live our lives, and we're searching for value. We're searching for something of worth and purpose, and the treasure is Jesus. When we find Jesus, then we should be willing to sell everything we have. We should be willing to sacrifice anything it takes to hold on to Jesus. And I think there is some truth in that there is nothing in this world, nothing that the world can offer us is comparable to the joy, to the value of Jesus Christ and knowing him. That is true. But I think more than just stories Jesus told to be about us, stories that we were supposed to make our lives, I think these stories are Jesus' life. This is the life that Jesus lived. The Apostle Paul, who wrote much of the New Testament, he was not one of the original disciples, but he had this encounter with Jesus, this supernatural encounter, and it totally transformed his life. And he committed his life to Christ. And he wrote, like I said, many letters that we have now in the New Testament. One of them was to a church in Philippi. And in Philippians chapter 2, he says this, Jesus, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So what happened here? What is Paul telling us? He's telling us that Jesus had great riches. He had status. He had power. He was and is God. He had equality with God. They were one in the same. What did he do with that? He gave it all up to live a life as a servant. And for what? What did he get for doing this? Death on a cross. The author of the book of Hebrews says that for the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. Both the author of Hebrews and Paul, in his letter to Philippians, make note that Jesus is now highly honored and seated at the right hand of God. Is this what Jesus did all of this for? So that he could be highly exalted and seated at the right hand of God? That doesn't make sense because he had equality with God. That's where he started. So that's not the reward that he came for. But this idea of Jesus giving up everything he had, giving up his life as a servant for all, I think this is the ending of the parable Jesus tells in Matthew 13. We just read it. Maybe you caught on that, like, this is kind of the beginning of a story. It's not a whole story. There's a man who he's digging, working in a field, he finds this treasure, he buries it, sells all he has, and then he buys that field. Well, what happens? Does it work out? Does it not work out for him? I can't help but think of Field of Dreams. You guys seen that movie before? Like, you give up everything for this treasure, for what you think will be worth it. Well, you can't just say that. Like, what if Field of Dreams stopped as soon as he plowed over all his crops and we have no idea what happened? Nobody would like that movie. But Jesus stops right there. Someone bought this field, and then what? What happened? Well, I think Jesus' life is the rest of that story. That Jesus is the one who found a treasure, gave up everything he had for it, died, was resurrected, and now is seated at the right hand of God. Jesus gave up his status and power, his equality with God, and he bought a treasure at the cost of his life. And now he's seated at the right hand of God. But what was the purchase that Jesus made? What did he buy after selling everything he had? What did his death gain him? Why was the cross a joy set before him? Again, it can't just be that now he's seated at the right hand of God because he didn't have to do anything to get there. He was already there. He gave that up to come to earth, to take on the form of a servant, and to die. The treasure that Jesus sold everything to buy is you. It's me. You are treasured by the God of the universe. He left everything, took on the form of a servant, joyfully took on a sinner's death, and he did it to be in relationship with you. He did it to reconcile his children back to him, so that we, sinners who have rebelled against God, could be brought back into the family of God. He did it so that we too may have joy, so that we could know to whom we belong and we could live into our meaning and purpose. There are these lines in a song that I come back to. I've probably quoted them from up here before today. I've certainly used them many times when I was working with the youth group here. But there's a spoken word artist, Propaganda, and in his song Lofty, he says this: "Worth, value, and beauty is not determined by some innate quality, but by the length for which the owner would go to possess them. And broken and ugly things just like us are stamped excellent with ink tapped in wells of divine veins." I'm going to read it again because I like it that much. "Worth, value, and beauty is not determined by some innate quality, but by the length for which the owner would go to possess them. And broken and ugly things just like us are stamped excellent with ink tapped in wells of divine veins." I just love these words so much. Worth, value, beauty, there is not some standard of what is worthy, what is valuable, and what is beautiful, and we have to achieve that standard. We have to live up to that standard. That's not how it works. Worth, value, beauty are determined by the length the owner of these things would pay for them. And we know this is true. It's not often how we live. We feel like there's some standard we have to achieve, but you know that this is true. An example from my life, my oldest daughter, Riley, she had still has a stuffed zebra. Zoe is his name, her name. It changes. We don't really know. I'm not sure how that works with stuffed animals. But Zoe is Riley's treasure, for sure. It cost us like $30 to get. And that was the length I was willing to go to possess Zoe. But Riley, on the other hand, would pay a much higher price. Zoe went everywhere. She slept with Zoe. She was in the car with Zoe. Zoe has made many appearances at church. Zoe was the first zebra I know of that went to preschool. So that was pretty cool. Zoe has gone everywhere. Zoe was in Riley's mouth. Zoe has fallen in the ocean. Zoe has seen many, many things. And if you look at Zoe, you're like, that looks like a zebra who's seen some things. Zoe does not look the way Zoe looked when we bought Zoe. And yet, her value has only increased because her worth, I'm crying about a zebra right now. Her worth, her value, and her beauty are not determined by how much she would fetch us on Amazon. It's how far would the owner go to keep Zoe. And there's no price, I would throw it away for free. But there is no price that Riley would not pay for Zoe. Zoe's worth is found in how her owner feels about her and what Riley would do for her. If that's true about a stupid stuffed animal, how much more true is that of us? That our worth, our value, our beauty, they're not determined about what other people say about you. They're not determined by what you see when you look in the mirror. You might look like, oh, man, I'm somebody who's seen some stuff. I don't know what my value is anymore. But I can tell you that that's not how God views you. God says, there's nothing I wouldn't give for you. And what is the price that our owner, the owner of the universe, paid for us? What was the length that he was willing to go to possess us? He was willing to give up all of it. He paid the ultimate price. Paul says, not only did Jesus not think equality with something to be grasped, he didn't say, no, I give up this life and I'll live as a human. He did that. But then it wasn't just, he could have come as a king, he could have come as a conquering warrior, he came as a servant. And then he died a sinner's death. He gave up everything. He paid the ultimate price, thus assigning you the highest worth, the most value, and the utmost beauty. There is no more affirming truth than this one. You are treasured. But there's another truth kind of baked in. The first is that we are treasured. And that is very true. We are worthy, valuable, we are beautiful because God said so. And he's the creator of the universe, so what he says goes. But there is another truth in there, and that is that we are not our own. Propaganda, the spoken word artist mentioned a few moments ago. He did not write the Bible. He's a fallible guy, I'm sure. But his words are that these characteristics, worth, value, beauty, are determined by the price the owner would go to possess them. The owner. That we are owned. We are not our own, but we belong to someone else. And we live in a world that we will, like you can find self-affirmations, right? You can go online and you can get a list of things that you tell yourself when you look in the mirror every morning to like get you pumped and motivated and excited for the day. You can get hashtag Monday motivation thoughts every Monday morning that like get you feeling good about yourself and ready to conquer and change the world, right? Our world, the church is not the only place where you get affirmation. It is, hopefully, it's a place where you get affirmations. But if all you're looking for in this world is affirmation, you don't need to come here. Because you can go get affirmed all over the place. So that part of this truth the world gets. But the other part, you are not your own. We don't get that message in the world. When the world tells us you are worthy, you're valuable, you're beautiful, those are nice. And they make us feel good. But from the lips of humans, from the lips of the people of this world, they're simply empty platitudes. Because what price have they paid for me? Nothing. They have done nothing for me other than try to make me feel affirmed. They've made no meaningful investment in my life. We live in a world that tells you that you belong only to yourself. That is, it is only your opinion of yourself that matters, not anyone else's. That as long as you're happy, then you're living the good life. That's what matters, that you're happy. Well, who determines what makes me happy? I do. So I belong to myself. I'm free to pursue happiness in any way that I want. Author Alan Noble addresses this idea at much more length than I'm going to this morning in his book, You Are Not Your Own, Belonging to God in an Inhuman World. But in that book, as he develops these ideas, he talks about how the world dangles this absolute freedom in front of us. We tell children from a young age, you can be anything you want. You determine your destiny. Do what makes you happy. Live your truth. Do you, boo. But this gift of absolute freedom ends up being a burden. And you know that. We value our freedom, but when we have absolute freedom, it becomes a burden. And let's back up. We don't have to look at how big of a burden, an existential burden it is. Something we can probably all relate to. It's Friday night. You're with your friends or your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever you're with them. And they say, what do you want to watch? And that burden of freedom crushes you because you're like, what do you mean, what do I want to watch? Let's watch Netflix. Well, Netflix isn't a show, so you open up Netflix, and now you've got to choose something on Netflix to watch. Only there's like infinite options on Netflix, and you spend longer looking for something to watch than whatever it is when you finally land on watching The Office again. And if that weren't enough, I've got Netflix, but I also have Amazon Prime, which also has like infinite options. And so I don't even know which streaming service to allow to burden me. I can't even choose which one. I have Hulu, I have HBO Max, and is cable still a thing? There are so many options. And maybe that's not what has burdened you, but has anyone ever asked you, what do you want to eat? By the time you decide, I'll just never eat again. After this conversation, I don't want anything to eat ever. Because we can go anywhere. We can have anything. Do you want to try this place? I had that last week. All right, well, what about this place? No, I'm not in the mood for that. So we have absolute freedom to watch whatever we want and eat whatever we want. And these are they're low on the importance list. And yet they burden us so much. So we have all experienced this. But then there are bigger decisions like, where do we live? How long should we live here? Do I stay at this job? Shouldn't I stay at this job? Does my life matter, or am I wasting it away, allowing myself to stay stuck? There's a whole world out there for us to explore. How do we know I kind of like my life. I like New Jersey enough. I like the people who are here. I like being able to go to the ocean pretty quickly. I can go to the city if I want. Mountains aren't even that far. I like the location that I'm in. I like my church. There's good people here. Worship's good. The preaching is okay. The preaching's good. But I drive past 5 churches on my way to get here, and I've never been in there. What if those churches made me happier? What if they were better? What if the people there are better? They're not. But what if? What if they are? How do we know when we're happy? I like my job. It's good. It's fulfilling. I enjoy it. But there are so many other jobs. I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to live there. There are so many options. How do we live under the weight of this freedom? And but the story that we're told is you determine your happiness. You belong to yourself. You bear the responsibility. It's packaged as freedom, not a responsibility, but you bear the responsibility of determining your destiny. Every movie we watch, maybe not every movie, most movies that we watch, once we finally decide which one we're going to watch, it's probably going to be about someone who feels like they're stuck living a life that someone else planned for them. And then they break free and they find what truly makes them happy. Roll credits, right? We've all seen that movie time and time again. The message that we are receiving is you belong to yourself. You are the only one who knows what will make you happy, and no matter what anybody else says, you have to go and find it. That also means that we are responsible for justifying our existence, determining and expressing our identity, determining what values you should hold and causes you should believe to be important. And this responsibility is crushing us. Depression rates are at all-time highs. We are burdening young people, not just with the quote-unquote normal stresses of life, right? Doing school, eventually starting to work, going to college, finding a career, finding someone to partner with in your life, eventually maybe having kids. Those are kind of the normal stresses of life. On top of that, we have asked young people to determine their sexual orientation and their inner sense of self as expressed through gender. These pressures are too much for anyone to bear. All that is before us, this world of opportunity, packaged as freedom and personal expression, ends up being a burden too heavy for any of us to carry. And it will crush us. It is crushing us. Now that you are thoroughly depressed, let's get back to the good news. Because Paul, in another letter that he wrote, this one to a church in Corinth, gives them some shocking news. In 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20, towards the end of verse 19, Paul says, "You are not your own. You have been bought with a price. You are not your own. You do not belong to yourself. You have been bought with a price." Now, what does that mean? I don't know how this news struck the Corinthians. I'm not sure how they heard it. But to our modern American ears, this is heresy. Of course we are our own. I determine my destiny. Anything else would be tyranny. It would be an infringement on my rights, or it would be oppression. It would be an abuse of power. But let me tell you that this is good news. You are not your own. You are treasured. You were bought with a price. Your worth, value, and beauty are permanent. The prices are fixed. It doesn't fluctuate depending on your performance. It doesn't fluctuate on how you feel about yourself. It doesn't fluctuate based on what people say about you or your performance review at job or if what your parents think about you or what your kids think about you. That doesn't change your worth, value, and beauty because you are not your own. The God of the universe has given you life and sustains your life. This fact alone justifies your existence. We have probably all felt like, what am I here? What is my purpose in life? I have to find why God put me here. And so we do that in various ways. We try to do that through relationship with other people. We try to do that through our jobs. There are so many ways that we try to justify the fact that we're here. But the truth is that God knit you together in your mother's womb. And that we are told that all things are held together by Jesus Christ. So the reason why you're here is because God said so. And if the creator of the universe said you should exist, then you should exist. Your existence is justified because of that. So let's say we can hold on to that fact that I don't have to justify my existence, but God has done that already. Well, I still need to be a good person, right? I want to make sure that I walk in a way that is worthy. That's biblical language, right? This is good stuff. I need to do enough good things, enough good works. Well, the same God who created you has paid for your sins on a cross. And so when we stand before him, we will not be judged based on our works of righteousness, but instead we'll be based on Christ's righteousness, that we are clothed in the righteousness of Christ. And so I cannot justify myself through enough good works. There aren't enough. Now, if I belong to myself, if I am my own and I determine my destiny, then the fact that I can't justify myself, that I'll never live up to that standard, that's bad news. But if I belong to God, if I am not my own and I've been bought with a price, then this is the best news. That I cannot justify myself, but I don't have to, because I've been justified by the blood of Jesus Christ. Your identity is not what other people think about you. It is not how good of a person you can be by your standards or by anyone else's. Your identity belongs in Christ. You are his. You are his son, his daughter. You are an heir with Christ. And now, because we are not our own, because we no longer have to live under that pressure of determining our own lives, we can live as we were created to live. Pastor Tim Keller used this analogy before, and I love it. He says that a fish is only free so long as a fish remains in water. If you put a fish on land, if you put a fish in a tree or threw it in the sky and said, "You're free, fly, little fish," that freedom that you have given this fish, you've broken it from the tyranny of the ocean, and you've given it freedom to go wherever it wants. What is that going to do to our newfound freedom little fish? It's going to kill it. It's going to be crushed under. It's going to suffocate. We are the same. We live in a world that says you can do whatever you want. Go and find what makes you happy and go explore, figure it out. But we weren't created to just go and do anything. We were created to live within boundaries. A fish is only free so long as it stays within the boundaries of water. We are only free when we live within the boundaries that God has told us to live within. There are obligations, there are sacrifices that we have to make when we belong to someone else. The world says you're free. Do whatever you want. You determine your destiny. And that sounds really good. But like that fish, we will suffocate under the weight of that freedom. God says there are obligations to being in the family of God. And to our ears, that sounds restricting. But God is seeking to free us. God is seeking to allow us to flourish, to live the way that we were created to live. And this is good news. This is the good news that we shared with your kids this week. That they are treasured. And this is the good news that you need to hear this morning. That you are treasured. And that you are not your own. But you have been bought with a price. And when we can live into this freedom, it removes such a weight that so many of us have been living with. A weight dressed in a nice package of freedom and opportunity and choices, but that crushes us. That we just find the weight becomes too much. We find coping mechanisms that just reinforce the bad feelings. But if we can just step into the freedom that God has for us, step into the world that God has created us to live, and realize that it's not up to us. I'm not my own, but I belong to Christ. And that's where I can have true freedom. That's where I can flourish. that I don't have to prove to you or to anyone or even myself that I'm worthy. I don't have to prove my value. I don't have to prove my beauty because my owner died so that he could possess me. There's no greater length, there's no greater price that could be paid. It's already paid. I'm not my own, but I belong to him. And so do you. And that freedom, that truth can free you to live as you were created to live. Would you pray with me? God, thank you for an opportunity to share this truth with the youngest people of our church. Lord, I pray that long past this week of VBS, that our little ones would know that they are treasured, that they are priceless before your eyes. But Lord, I don't just want that truth to take root in their hearts. I want it to take root in ours as well. Lord, as we face the burdens and the stresses of this world, as we hear the messages and we start to buy into this story that we are our own, that there is a pressure for us to prove how worthy we are, that we would constantly be reminded by your Spirit that we are not our own, that we do not belong to ourselves, but that we have been bought with a price. And there is no better news, there is no freeing news than to know that we belong to you. Lord, I pray that we would stop trying to find freedom out in this world, that we would stop feeling like we have to explore and we have to experience everything, and instead that we would trust that you are a good Father who has set up boundaries for us, not to restrain us, not to make us miss out, but so that we could have the environment we need to flourish and to live as you have called us to live. Lord, I pray as this good news takes root into our hearts, that we would be able to shed the burdens of this world and we would take on your yoke, which you say is easy, that we would experience the rest of abiding in Christ, and that we would share this good news with others. We are not our own, but we belong to you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you, everyone. If you have time to hang out, we could use some help.